This is the information that is hidden from the people and that everybody must know with respect to these new pandemic agreements. Number one, general remarks. Both of these legal instruments are technically international agreements. They are concluded between 194 member states, but they involve and has as a target and objective the World Health Organization as a third party. Number two, these agreements are negotiated without taking into consideration the massive and undeniable amount of data and of scientific evidence about the collateral damages of the global pandemic management of the WHO. And the WHO, as probably most governments, are still today in a state of total denial with respect to these collateral damages. There's no learning. Even worse, this new pandemic legal regime will legalize all the methods of this pandemic period under COVID-19 that have proven to be harmful or wrong. Third general remark, on the basis of these two legal instruments, member states will transfer constitutional powers to the WHO in an extent never seen before. WHO will be given full discretion to set up conditions under which all kinds of mandates, including injections of experimental substances, can be made mandatory on a global scale. I come now to the details. Number one, WHO's already existing authority to declare a public health emergency of international concern will become massively extended. They will be allowed to declare all kinds of public health emergency under any given reason without any responsibility to clear standards. This will come under the title and concept of One Health. So whether to fight a human influenza with a new subtype, or to reduce rising level of CO2, or to respond to the loss of biodiversity, or to fight climate change, all of that can give rise to the next pandemic, public health emergency of international concern, and I refer to the amendments to the Article 12 of the International Health Regulations. This is pure arbitrariness. This is the opposite of the rule of law. And it comes without a mechanism to correct or to stop this declaration of the emergency. And this is the first point where member states will give away control over their country. In addition, linked to that, in the national legislation, regulatory legislation of the member states, with the declaration of a public health emergency comes the abolishment of ordinary safety standards for medical products. Point number two, WHO will be authorized to issue recommendations with legally binding effects. This is legislation. This is legislation directly affecting every human being. We are talking about mandatory testing methods by useless tools, mandatory travel restrictions, mandatory lockdowns, mandatory vaccinations with predefined experimental products, mass quarantines, and so on. This doctrine of mandatory one-size-fits-all will deny all human beings the individual treatment, the right for individual treatment they deserve. It will also hinder medical doctors to truly care about their patients. This doctrine is totalitarian by design, and we have to oppose it. It is a blank check to literally violate bodily autonomy of every human being and humiliate people on a global scale. Point number three, censorship. As WHO has already done on the COVID-19, this international organization will be granted the global supreme authority to define truth and science and to eliminate free speech and free exchange of information under the title of infodemics. Now, as we all should know, free speech and free information are among the founding principles in every democracy, in every constitution. Without free speech and free information, by definition, there can be no free science, there can be no fair justice, And most of all, there can be no democracy. But this is not all. With this global health censorship, people will never learn and never know about the dangers that are associated with these mRNA-based products and other countermeasures. So they will be mandated to take experimental injections without an informed consent. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, an example of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, as it is absolutely prohibited under mandatory international law, as it is written down in the United Nations Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 7, and breach of which can never be justified. Point number 4, in the same time, the new pandemic treaty is a basis for a state-directed economy under the vague concept of equity, and it will allow, even create cartels for the pandemic industry that will enjoy guaranteed profits without any liability for the damages they cause, just as we have seen that already under COVID. Point 4, all of the above will become reality without any mechanism to effectively control or stop the WHO. So there will be no checks and balances, but full discretion and arbitrariness to the benefit of WHO. Even full immunity and no accountability. And here again, checks and balances is another of the founding principles in every constitution, which comes here under attack. So let's speak about point number 6. The next point, fundamental rights. Well, that is easily responded. We see some lines in the new pandemic treaty claiming fundamental rights to be the basic principles of WHO. But I ask you, with such a strict regime of unnecessary promoted emergencies, with censorship and with mandatory medical treatment, how will it be possible to protect human rights for a judge who only hears one side and is not allowed to consider even the other side from those brave scientists who many of them are here in the room? It will be impossible by design. And associated with that is the fact that the governments will always try to comply with their international law obligations towards WHO.
Sei sotto un cielo sbagliato.